Ready, give it to go. Terrance, you first. Accio. Good. Bailey.
Accio.
Very good. Luke.
Accio.
Wonderful. Now Gretchen.
Accio.
Excellent. Now all together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Accio Hogwarts Radio.
This is Hogwarts Radio, episode 239 for March 24th, 2019. Hogwarts Radio is the official podcast for Wizarding News, discussing all things Harry Potter, Fantastic Beasts, and the rest of the Wizarding world. For the quickest up-to-date news on the franchise, make sure you check out wizarding.news. Hello everyone, and this is Hogwarts Radio, broadcasting to Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts fans worldwide since 2008. I'm Terrance Pinkston.
I'm Gretchen Rush.
And I'm Alex Lohman.
Our show can be found virtually anywhere online, such as iTunes, the Google Podcast app, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Radio Public, and other places where podcasts are aggregated. It doesn't matter where or how you listen, just make sure to tap the subscribe button, and we guarantee you'll have a new episode each Sunday.
We also invite you to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram so you never miss an update from the show.
Don't forget, Hogwarts Radio is also on Patreon. By pledging, you'll have instant access to many benefits, including Into the Common Room, behind-the-scenes planning of the show, Hogshead Radio, and much more. Sign up today over at patreon.com/Hogwarts Radio. Welcome to episode 239. We are bright-haired and bushy-tailed. Wait, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Well, it's early. It's early for us.
Bushy-eyed.
Well, yeah, I was trying to think of like a Hermione reference.
Bright-eyed and bushy-eyed.
Bright-eyed and bushy-haired, right?
How's that no coffee going for you over there, Terrance?
my bottle of water's doing great for me. Thank you so much. But we've really got a lot to get to this week, so we're just going to jump straight into the news. So, Gretchers, what's been happening?
All right. The Warner Brothers studio tour in London, The Making of Harry Potter, has added another set. The Gringotts Wizarding Bank is coming. I think we've mentioned it before. But the set will not open until April 6th. But 2 mischievous Hogwarts students and 1 Gringotts goblin got a chance to go inside. So James and Oliver Phelps and Warwick Davis got a chance to explore it. So you can check out some of those pictures and videos over on MuggleNet. And they gave us a little preview of what it looks like. So at 16,500 square feet, the Gringotts set is the biggest expansion of the studio tour so far. It looks as though visitors will be able to walk the marbled hall and gaze at the extravagant chandelier before heading to the teller station to request access to their vault. It shows the incredible amount of detail that went into the Gringotts set, from the marble effect on the pillars to the crystals on the chandeliers that light the hall. This set is just absolutely gorgeous, and James and Oliver and Warwick had a bit of fun kind of role-playing and playing around as their characters. And James and Oliver also got to explore the Lestrange Vault, which is full of all of the gold and treasures that we see in Deathly Hallows Part 2. So this set looks super cool and really authentic. The studio tour seems like an incredible place to go, and they just keep adding more and more amazing experiences to it. So if you get a chance to go after April 6th and experience the Gringotts set, do it. It looks really awesome.
Why do I feel like I've been there before? I mean, it feels just from the pictures and everything like that, minus the Lestrange Vault. It feels like I've been there because I kind of have with the expansion at Universal a few years ago. I mean, you can, whenever you go into the Gringotts ride, the queue starts in the main lobby of Gringotts.
Yeah, it does. And this looks really, really similar. So I'm curious if the set at the studio tour, how it differs from the Orlando experience, because it looks really identical.
That's what I'm saying is like, whenever, I mean, I don't think James and Oliver Phelps have had lines or had to shoot on the Gringotts set, but we know that Warwick Davis has, and I'm kind of wondering how they differ or how identical they are.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering that too, because the one at Orlando, there's so much attention to detail in it that that, when you're quoting like the square footage on the London set and the expansion, I was like, well, yeah, that's considerably larger than the Escape from Gringotts ride and the lobby that you waited. But there's already so much detail that I was sitting here thinking, like, what else could they have added that really would have like given depth to the experience? Because honestly, that lobby is one of my favorite parts of going to Universal. And just, I love that ride. I love roller coasters, period. But that lobby is so much fun, and there's so much attention to detail that I see for people who haven't had that experience that it would be worth it and it would be super cool. But for people who have been to Orlando, like, yeah, I'm wondering, I mean, is there more ways to interact with the goblins? Is there, smaller attentions to detail? I mean, the Lestrange Vault would be super cool. I'm very into that idea. But yeah, I'm wondering if maybe they weren't just like, well, it was a success in Orlando. Maybe we'll just make it a success in London too.
I guess we'll have to wait and see when some more detailed reports come out about this, and hopefully I'm sure someone will take it upon themselves to go, oh, I've been to Orlando. Let's compare the differences. So we'll have to see what pops up.
Can you imagine Warwick Davis being on the set in this experience and be like, oh, yeah, been there, done that. Kind of seen this multiple times already.
He looks around. He's like, yeah, this is it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool. Good job, guys.
Where's the roller coaster?
Our next bit of news is about Warner Brothers itself. So Warner Brothers CEO and chairman Kevin Tsujihara has stepped down. He has stepped down as of March 18th, 2019. So he will no longer be the CEO and chairman. And we know that he was really crucial in making a lot of things happen for JK. Terrance, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so he basically planted the seed that kind of blossomed into this 5 mega film series that we're in right now with Fantastic Beasts. He planted that seed into J.K. Rowling's mind, and really influential in her stepping back into the wizarding world on screen, and really gave J.K. Rowling the freedom that she needed to be able to continue the series. So there's a big question here, and most of J.K. Rowling's freedom has come from Kevin Tsujihara. With the new chairman and CEO, I wonder if she's going to have that same luxury.
Well, so I haven't been following this super closely. Do we have any ideas or speculation about who's going to be taking over?
No, I think Warner Brothers has been pretty tight-lipped on that, and we haven't heard anything. At least I haven't heard anything from any of my contacts over there.
I can't imagine that whoever's going to step in is going to try and take a tighter leash with Joe, so to speak, only because like the hallmark of her kind of giving, permission for the films to even be created for Fantastic Beasts is that she does have super tight control personally over what happens with this universe. I do wonder, obviously someone who's coming into a new position like a CEO kind of wants to assert authority and dominance and all of that, and may kind of want to do like a puffery bit, but with someone who is so well established and who is essentially a key cornerstone to this whole multi-billion-dollar enterprise. I don't know if that would be the person to challenge it with, but I do agree that it'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of her ability to really kind of have as much creative license as she did.
I just hope that the new person doesn't like take a look at the box office for Crimes of Grindelwald and say like, oh, Kevin didn't do a great job, so I'm here to fix it, and then try to tighten the reins and change things around, because that would probably not help at all.
Yeah, no,
just a guess.
Absolutely. That's my fear as well, is they come in, they take a look at the last film that was made and the track that it's on, and I hope that they are in tune with their fan communities, or they're listening to the people that are. And I just feel like, they need to let J.K. Rowling make these corrections, see what happens with the third movie. And if the third movie doesn't perform as expected, then yeah, I mean, maybe that particular person needs to step in and make some difficult decisions.
So we'll have to see what happens. Hopefully a new CEO will be announced soon. We have a little Hogwarts Mystery update. Hogwarts Mystery is rolling in the galleons.
That was funny.
Thanks to Amy at Mugglenet for that beautiful pun. And this is a little update on the money. Any guesses? Did either of you look at the article? Any guesses on how much Hogwarts Mystery has made since April 2018?
Oh, I will say $10 million.
I literally have no idea because one, I didn't look at that article, but two, I played Hogwarts Mystery for a minute and then got so frustrated I stopped playing. So I'm the wrong person to ask.
All right, perfect. Well, we've got two super wrong guesses. Hogwarts Mystery has racked up $110 million.
Oh my gosh,
No way.
I
Yes.
was gonna say $100 million, but I was like, nah.
You would have been so close.
Hey, that's like 1/6 of what Crimes of Grindelwald made.
Seriously, the game performs better. On average, the game is bringing in $29 million a month. And who do you think what country is spending the most money?
Has to be the United States by far.
Ding, ding, ding. Yes,
yeah,
it is.
that would be my guess.
The United States contributes $52.8 million, which is 48%. And in second is Germany at $10 million. And in third is the United Kingdom at $9.2 million.
Wow. That's surprising for me. Germany at number 2, huh?
Yep.
That's really cool.
So I guess we are just either we're most playing it or we just hate to wait and really want to just spend those galleons.
I'm going to assume the latter for sure. Because that was my frustration, but I was too cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've already given this franchise enough of my money so far.
Agreed.
But that's pretty crazy. This little app is God, $110 million. Jeez, I'm crow. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. And it's kind of nice to see it doing so well. I think it was a really cool addition. I kind of fell off playing it because I got busy. But it is a really cool thing. I think fans are still really enjoying it. They're putting out a lot of awesome content. And then this hopefully bodes well for Wizards Unite coming out this summer.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of Hogwarts Mystery, didn't they add... part of why it's doing so well is that the game itself is constantly evolving. They're pumping in new content and stuff like that, creating new campaigns, which is really, really cool. I think they put the recent one I saw was Peter Pettigrew is now appearing. So that's really cool.
Definitely. They had a lot of really cool stuff. And our last bit of news is a throwback. So on this date in 2007, Warner Brothers confirmed that Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, and Emma Watson were all signed to star in the last Harry Potter movies. So the press release says Dan, Rupert, and Emma will reprise the roles they have made their own in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the final 2 motion picture adaptations of J.K. Rowling's best-selling book series. So at this point, obviously, they still believe that the last movie was just going to be one movie, which is adorable. And they all made little statements. Dan said, playing the role of Harry Potter has been an immense privilege, and I look forward to completing the series. I feel a huge sense of loyalty to the character of Harry and the fans who have supported these films over the years. During filming, I have learned so much, made lots of friends, and met people who have changed my life. I am indebted to J.K. Rowling, Warner Brothers, and David Heyman for giving me this fantastic opportunity.
Yeah, can you imagine how different the series would have been if they didn't sign on for the remaining films?
It's insane to me that this is even a question, that they weren't already locked into like you have to be in every movie. Like that's part of the contract you sign when you're 11. Like, I guess that's kind of insane, but it just is nuts to me that they would have to make a statement like, don't worry, they're going to be in the last movies.
I wonder if part of the thought process behind like not committing them to, God knows how long of a contract for all films was, they were so young when they were cast. What were they going to mature to be? A lot of different questions that maybe you don't deal with when you have, say, a 20-something-year-old actor playing these roles. So I've thought about that in the past, like why didn't they just commit at the outset? But I think there's a lot of unique challenges that come with young actors and what they're going to do. But, to Terrance's point, I think about like replacing actors halfway through. And I think I've said this before. It's like the Spider-Man problem where you have like 4 different versions of Spider-Man and you're like, who is Spider-Man? So thank God we did not have the problem with the Harry Potter universe. But I also think Harry Potter, the original films were kind of, aside from Lord of the Rings, were kind of the first time like a major movie franchise was coming, not the first time, but in terms of kind of our base of knowledge coming out in, more than like 2 films. And so it was kind of new territory. I honestly, like, I'm not a film history buff or anything like that, but I kind of wonder, like, in the literature or scholarly research on film history, like what role the franchise will play in terms of like creating that continuity of characters and the franchise actors and stuff like that. I'd actually never really thought about that until now. That's kind of interesting.
So you made a couple of good points. I want to start it with, let's not forget, like, Warner Brothers had no idea how massive this franchise would become. So naturally signing them on for maybe 4 films and locking them in for specific amounts on their contract and allowing them that time to renegotiate after the 4th film for more money, which is what they did. After the 4th or 5th film, I can't quite remember at this point. It sucks getting old. But anyway, they renegotiated, and I think Rupert and Emma negotiated at $25 million for the remaining films, and Dan was $50 million for the remaining films. So, I mean, it makes sense not to kind of sign them all at once. And then you brought up a good point, Alex, is let's not also forget that there were other franchises happening at the time that Harry Potter was filming. We had the Twilight series, we had the Hunger Games, we had the start of, I think, the Insurgent series, the Maze Runner, and all of that. And I think out of all of those, only one couldn't keep their franchise actors, and it was Insurgent, the Insurgent series. Am I saying that one right? Is it
Divergent? But yeah, that's one of the movies, Insurgent. That's the second one, I think.
And so the Divergent series, if you look at it, like the last film that they released ended up like in the $3.99 bin at the local car wash, just because the main actor didn't sign on to complete that particular role.
Wait, really? So I'm actually, like, I'm a big fan of the books. I love Veronica Roth. I lived in Chicago for a long time, so I'm a huge fan of the series. But I saw the first film and was wildly disappointed and never continued on with the films, I will admit. So who was the actor that didn't sign on for the last film?
Shailene Woodley was the lead.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize
But I think there was a lot of, if I'm remembering that correctly, there was a lot of problems with like development. It ended up being delayed a long time. And she was like, I'm kind of a big deal. Like, I can't sit around and wait for this movie that didn't even do that well. Like, I'm going to move on with my life. So yeah, I was thinking the same thing. That's so interesting because that was immediately what popped into my head, is the fact that they couldn't really get that series to land. And that was only like 3 movies. Like, the fact that I actually would be very surprised if there's a repeat success of 8 films with the exact same cast for the entire 8 films, minus what was an unavoidable recasting of Dumbledore. Because that just seems so rare to me. That seems like lightning in a bottle. Like, you're not going to get that again, of talented, incredible actors committing and being able to be there for 8 super successful films. Like, I just don't know that we're ever going to see that again.
I think the Star Wars saga came close to that, and the Lord of the Rings saga as well. Granted, they didn't have as large of a returning cast, but you did have characters like Gandalf, who was played by Ian McKellen, who appeared in all the prequels. Then he appeared in all of the Lord of the Ring movies.
Oh, The Hobbit is what you're talking about.
The Hobbit, yeah.
Yeah, I was like,
you said Star Wars.
Gandalf?
Well, no.
Like, Gandalf's not in Star Wars. What are you talking about?
Well, no.
That's true. No, that's a good point. Actually, though, on the topic of Star Wars, they did have a lot of people. They had people who were deceased that they recreated digitally and put them in movies. So I think it's possible to get a few, definitely. And I think that, and I also think, like, on the topic of Ian McKellen, times are so changing with film. Like, he really did not like being in those Hobbit movies. It was way too much green screen for him. So I don't know, like, things just change so rapidly and people want to move on with their lives. Actors want to do other things. So I think it's tough to get people to commit to a very long series.
I agree 100%.
That's all the news.
Okie dokie. Well, let's move on to a few announcements. We've got a big one for the show. As of a couple of days ago, we have hit our 15 patron goal. Mark Connor was the last one who signed up on Patreon. Mark has been a longtime listener of the show. So, Mark, if you're listening right now, buddy, thank you so much for your support. And to all of our patrons as well. We greatly appreciate that. Now, what does this mean for you? Starting with episode 241, not with the next one, but with the one after that, you're going to be getting longer episodes of Hogwarts Radio, and it'll be an hour and a half episode every week. So that is due to all of your support that you've shown us on Patreon. So thank you so much. Our next goal is 20 patrons, and once we hit that, we're going to be recording a commentary to Chamber of Secrets and have a live AMA with the hosts before we view the film. So it's your chance to ask us anything at all about us, and we have to answer it. And it's going to be fun to record the Chamber of Secrets commentary. We've done 2 in the history of this show so far. We've done, I think about like 7 years ago or 8 years ago, we did the commentary to Sorcerer's Stone. And then just this past Christmas, we did a special commentary for Home Alone. That was a lot of fun. But our next goal is 20 patrons. So again, we greatly appreciate your support. You can also listen to Hogwarts Radio on your Amazon Echo. I found this out the other day by asking I'm not going to say the trigger word. I'm not going to say her name because it'll trigger everything. So we'll just say Echo. We'll ask Echo to play the Hogwarts Radio podcast. And Echo is going to grab it from TuneIn and start playing the latest episode. Super cool. And it took me a while to kind of figure this out. I was like, Echo, play Hogwarts Radio. And then it says, I'm sorry, I can't find anything called Hogwarts. And I'm like, oh my God. It's like, it was thinking radio was actual channel name and stuff like that.
Hogwarts Station.
Yeah.
That's super cool, though. I'm going to try that.
Yeah. So, the trigger phrase is the Hogwarts Radio podcast. Okay, well, let's get to this week's discussion. And this discussion comes from an article over on MuggleNet written by Hogwarts Radio, sometimes host of Eric Skull, and wrote this brilliant piece called J.K. Rowling and the Impossible Predicament. And this stems from what happened this past week with an article that was released online because of some information that J.K. Rowling had stated in the Crimes of Grindelwald commentary, specifically about Dumbledore and Grindelwald's relationship. So, what happened? Well, yet another misleading article headline, this time from Jose Martinez at Complex, and his headline stated that J.K. Rowling reveals Dumbledore and Grindelwald had an incredibly intense sexual relationship. Now, here's the facts. What J.K. Rowling actually says about Dumbledore and Grindelwald's relationship, as quoted in Complex's article, and this is directly from Eric's article, is that their relationship was incredibly intense. It was passionate, and it was a love relationship. Separately, Rowling added that she believes there was a sexual component to the relationship, but that she, as a writer, is more interested in exploring the emotions that the characters were feeling. This is not the same as J.K. Rowling saying Grindelwald and Dumbledore had incredibly intense sex. Shame on Complex and shame on Jose Martinez for writing what would obviously be misunderstood. And this really, the reason why this got so much news is because it gained a lot of traction through the internet. It was picked up everywhere. It was even on CNN, I think, on their homepage for a couple of days. It still might be there, but it really lit the fandom on fire. And I think in the way that the fans responded to it was like, we're fed up with this kind of misleading rhetoric. You know, it's like we've been through it. We went through it a couple of years ago with somebody picking up an article and saying, oh, J.K. Rowling says that she wished that she never paired Ron and Hermione together. And that was taken in really out of context. So I wanted to get the thoughts of the panel today and just really talk about how this is being spun.
So I want to talk about the way that the fandom reacted to this. I just wanted to say, I think this leads to a deeper issue about the way that we consume news. I can't even tell you how many times I go up to people and we're just chatting and I say like, oh, did you see the new Game of Thrones prequel is going to be this? And they go, oh, yeah, tell me about that. And I'm like, oh, well, I didn't click on the article. I just read the headline. And they're like, oh, yeah, I saw that headline too. Like, when you have a Pixel, these articles just pop up in your feed, and my boyfriend and I will get the same ones, and we'll be like, oh, did you see that headline? Neither of us clicked on the article. So I think the way that we consume news now and you can see it in the way that headlines are being written, is that we very much read the headline and we go, oh, I just learned something. I learned a bit of news. People typically, from what I found, do not click on articles to learn more. So the problem now is that news people know this, and they're trying to get people to click on the article by writing these clickbaity headlines. So his headline was the epitome of clickbait. It was inaccurate. It was totally out of context, not at all what she said. And people are reading that headline and not actually reading the quotes. And Eric gets into that a bit in his article. So I think the whole thing is just spun and spun and spun out of control because people are not actually reading articles. And this also leads to the way that people view Jo, because people are thinking, Jo always does this. She's always releasing new things. She's saying these ludicrous things. Oh my gosh, she said another thing. And they just read the headline because it confirms, it's confirmation bias, confirms what they already thought. So I think the whole thing, it's just inevitable at this point because people are reading these headlines. It's confirming what they're thinking. They're making memes because they're funny, and it's all spinning way out of control.
Yeah, I think it reflects the responsibility of the fanship and just consumers of news generally to actually click and to read. And I've thought about this. I love Twitter. I just said that, I don't know how many minutes ago. I love Twitter, but I also love Twitter because I kind of get, I know it's not 140 characters anymore, but I get a smaller soundbite of what's going on in the world, like as I'm sitting in court waiting for cases to be called, or as I'm on the go because my job is really crazy and I'm on the go all the time. But that said, you see something and you're like, oh, that's, a bit of news information that I want to know about or I want to consume. You have a responsibility to dig in and to actually read instead of seeing, as you said, Gretchen, and I totally agree, seeing things that are kind of confirmation bias in terms of what you want to see and how journalists, news media are really capturing on that and being like, hey, this is, based off of what we're seeing and what we're hearing, what we're studying. This is what people want to see in 140 characters or less. So let's just put that out there and see. And I do think it's irresponsible of journalists, but I also think it's irresponsible of the general public to kind of perpetuate that because it's kind of the chicken or the egg debate. In terms of the article on MuggleNet, Eric's article, I have not had the pleasure of meeting Eric on the podcast yet, but I loved this article. I thought it was so brilliantly written. It tackled everything, and not even just from like a personal, politically motivated, because as we know, this topic is politically charged. We've been down this path before with Dumbledore. And what I appreciate is it's just tackling the issues in a very critical way without any personal bias. But there was one paragraph in particular that I just loved. And Eric says, today I read criticism that to say Dumbledore and Grindelwald had an incredibly intense sex, which again, she did not say, was to oversimplify gay characters into crude sexual beings. That is precisely the opposite of what Rowling said, since she approached their relationship in this interview from an emotional standpoint and stated that she would like to explore that side more. If anything, her comments worked toward explaining why a sex scene didn't happen in the film or in the past of her published work, but she felt the need to include the words, I believe there is a sexual dimension, likely so that people would not accuse her of castrating her most prolific gay character. For if Dumbledore is gay but doesn't have sex with another man on screen, is he really gay? Ridiculous. And Eric goes on, but what I loved about this is why, even with the clickbait, even with the mischaracterizations, why are we so focused on this chunk of it? Like, is this what, I understand it's salacious and pun intended, it's sexy or whatever. But as fans, as true fans, like why is this all of a sudden the thing that we are blowing up about on social media? Why are we having fervent discussions about this? Why aren't we talking about, the deeper, darker intricacies of this relationship that are really unfurling in the Fantastic Beasts franchise? A lot of stuff that we had some basic allusions to towards the end of the Harry Potter series. And, this topic, I am saddened by how much it divides our fandom, but that is kind of the nature of the world that we live in, unfortunately. And I can, appreciate everyone's position on it and everyone's, personal input into the topic. But should that really be what drives the conversation about a series that, as I think it was like 2 episodes ago, where we were talking about how Harry Potter can be, this great escape for a lot of people out of daily struggles. It was, a really beautiful moment, you guys, and I loved listening to that. But I wish that we could really take that moment and appreciate that Harry Potter can be that escape, and we don't necessarily have to bring in real world ugliness into the fandom. So it's a really difficult topic, and it's a really kind of difficult thing to parse out. But I really want to applaud Eric, because I thought this article was just fantastic.
Let's talk about the issue at hand here within the article, not just the clickbaity headline and the way that it was picked up by other media outlets, but let's talk about the central issue. And it's kind of like opening up another wound for the fan community, because it's an issue that so many people are divided over. While some people may not feel like sexual representation is needed to validate Dumbledore and Grindelwald's relationship, others feel as though they're not being represented through a series and an author that preaches progressivism and the right to be represented. Just because the series preaches the right doesn't mean she has to include it in the story.
Well, I think on that topic, I hear both sides loud and clear. But where I will say I differ on the need for inclusion, it's not coming from like a prude position or, a personal position. It's actually coming from a writer's position. I love to write. I'm definitely not Joe or a professional, but I love to write. And so my thought is this: does it serve a necessary plot point? Does it drive the story forward? Is that bit of inclusion necessary for us as a fandom to truly understand the story, either on screen or in writing? And from what we know and what we have, my preliminary answer is no. And so in that position, I don't think it's necessary, but I will say, I hear both sides loud and clear, and I appreciate both positions. I'm kind of taking the cop-out answer and going down a middle road and saying, from a creative writer plot perspective, I don't think it's necessary.
It's really the safest answer, in trying not to offend anybody. Like it or not, depending on the person that you talk to, they're obviously going to have a different position, that they feel that it is critical that she addresses these within the stories, and it helps, further progress the character development and things like that. But I mean, to drive the overall plot, not necessary.
And I also would argue that these are children's books, and they're, movies for the fandom, and they're action movies. We never have had long scenes. If it was like a Game of Thrones thing where you're seeing, there was the whole up in arms thing because it was naked women and no naked men, which I totally agreed with, because it wasn't fair. It wasn't equitable. But we've never seen sexual experiences in Harry Potter. We've seen like 2 kisses. So I wonder if maybe that is where people are getting upset, because we aren't seeing any gay kissing or interaction, or she's just kind of, it feels like, I think, she's throwing things out but has no intention to actually provide that on screen. And I think that is where the anger comes in, and the feeling like you're not being represented, because it feels like fan service. It feels like she's trying to say, I do care about you, but I'm not going to put it in my movies. I'm not going to put it in my books. So I think that was the reaction when she announced that Dumbledore was gay. And I can only imagine that hearing that however many years ago, and then learning that he's going to be in a movie, but that there's not going to be anything, there's going to be no hint that he's gay. He's never going to say anything about his feelings, from our understanding. I can imagine that would be very disheartening and very disillusioning. So to then see a headline like this and be like, well, what's happening now? I don't understand. Like, are you going to give us any of that? Are you going to show us that? Why are you saying that if you're not going to give us that? So I think that it's just an overall confusion, maybe, and it might stem from it might stem from a lack of trust. It might just be like people think, well, I don't trust her anymore to give me what she says she's going to give me. And I don't know how you fix this. I don't know how you resolve this. And then if she does end up putting something in the next movie where they kiss or it's a flashback and you show them kissing, people might say, well, I didn't want that. I just wanted to see a movie about people doing spells. So I don't know that there is a right answer. I don't know that there's a way to make everyone happy or to really fully make people feel represented when they probably already feel like she's kind of just throwing stuff out.
Well, so Gretchen, I actually have a follow-up question for you on that. When you were saying that, essentially Joe's throwing out bits of information and maybe doesn't have the intent to follow up with her, new revelations either in later writings or in the film franchise. Do you think that is, to use your words, like a fan service, kind of intentional to be like, okay, I've got a fan base who's expressing this desire and this bit of information does fit into the universe? Or the other thing that I've always thought about with Joe is that, right before the 7th film, part 1, I think came out, she was on like a CBS series talking about or writing and Harry Potter. And she had always mentioned that these characters live in her head and they've continued to live on even though she stopped writing. And, the interviewer sat down and asked her like, well, where are these characters now? Where do they go? And she started to draw like a diagram and then stopped herself. And she was like, no, like this could go on for forever because they're still living on. And it was something that like as a writer always spoke to me. But I bring that up because is this, part of the universe that's continued to live on to her in her head that she's decided to let the fandom in on? Or do you think it's kind of more the former, what you were saying, that just kind of throwing the information out there as she's hearing it from the fandom? Because I do think both are plausible explanations of why she would give us this information and not do anything with it. I was just curious to kind of get your thoughts on that based off of what you just said.
And I think you've kind of touched on it exactly right there. Personally, I believe that it is in her head. As a writer, she has created these characters. They live in her head and she's choosing to let us in on that. But I think that is not everyone's opinion. And I think there are some people who think she just makes stuff up because she can, because it's her right to make things up. Obviously, that's how books are created. She just makes things up and throws it out because she wants to get a reaction, or she wants to see what happens, or she wants to let gay people know that they are being represented. And I think that it very much depends on what you believe. If you believe that she is throwing things out as fan service, you might have more of a disillusioned view of what she shares later on. And I don't know that you can change people's minds about that. If they are in that negative mindset of she just gives us things, no way she knew Nagini was a person, like I don't believe any of that. If that's your mindset, I don't know what she could do to change that. Give you proof of her writings that show that Dumbledore and Grindelwald had a relationship. She probably never wrote that down. I just don't know. I don't know what people will be convinced by, and I don't know that they can be convinced. And that is kind of, I think, where we're getting these reactions, because people are just responding and reacting, and they're negative on the series. They hated Crimes of Grindelwald. They think everything's gone downhill. Twitter is the worst. I hate that she does this. And you cannot change those people's minds, I don't think. Unless, Terrance, do you think people will change their minds about this?
So it's difficult, right? People are always going to believe whatever they want to believe. But it's whenever you lay out the facts for them is whenever you can finally begin to even think about changing somebody's mind. Before the facts, it's all hearsay. It's all, you're going to believe whatever you want to believe, and there's nothing to change it. We see that in the world today. Most notably in the political sphere, right? You're never going to change somebody's mind unless you have the facts laid out before you. Now, J.K. Rowling is the author of this series. She can do whatever the hell she wants with whatever character she wants. She can say that Luna Lovegood went and became a punk rocker. She could say that, Ron Weasley fell into a deep depression and ended up killing himself. I mean, but would she? I mean, if that's the way that she saw the character going, then yes. What I want to ask is why is J.K. Rowling giving us information, like additional information that we aren't asking for? Why not give us the information that we're requesting? Like, I mean, since she has this all up in her head, why not just, give us an answer? Is Lavender Brown dead or alive? I mean, what happened to her after the final battle? And then that comes into like, does she have to give us an answer? Like, do we deserve an answer? And whenever it comes down to it, no, she doesn't have to do anything that she doesn't want to. But at the same time, as fans, there's just this heavy curiosity, and I think as much as the fans have invested in this story, I think that we are due some answers that we request.
You touched on something really interesting, Terrance, about the answers we want versus the answers she's willing to give, or the information she's willing to give, which kind of got me thinking about what other fandom or book series kind of has this dynamic currently. I mean, we were just talking about Game of Thrones, Divergent, Twilight, all these different series that, came out similarly in the timeline of things, akin to Harry Potter. And I'm not as in touch with other series as I am with Harry Potter. What authors are kind of having this conversation where they're willing to give information, where they're super tight-lipped, like, and where can we analogize this, and what is the author's responsibility versus like obligation? And it's going to be an interesting question that I really hope that our listeners will kind of flesh out a little bit, because I would love to read more. I'd love to know more about what is JK's position in terms of giving us information that we're actually requesting versus giving us information that she feels is necessary, or that she's intrigued by, or she wants us to know. And I don't know if I've seen a ton of conversation about that topic itself. It always gets wrapped up into the salacious, clickbait headlines, and then we get sidetracked on, Dumbledore's sexuality, or, Hermione's ultimate marriage choices. And we don't really get into the nuts and bolts of like kind of the true issue. And I would so invite that conversation, because I think it would be fantastic.
Well, and I can tell you, for other authors of young adult literature, they are not engaging with fans this way. They are not providing additional information. Stephanie Meyer, who wrote Twilight, started to write the first book from Edward's point of view, and then it leaked, and she got so mad about that she never released it. And fans were dying to have that book. Like, I was a big Twilight fan, and I was like on a Twilight fan site, and people were so mad. We couldn't believe that she would be so petty not to release that book. So I can tell you that authors are not doing what J.K. Rowling is doing. She's giving us more information. She is really providing things that we did not ask for and never could have imagined she would give us. It's like a real treat, and the fact that she has not been on Twitter for 2 months, she has not been giving us that stuff, and people are like, come back. She doesn't have to give us anything in the first place. She's a very busy person, a very important person. And the fact that she does give us anything, I think people, because she's been doing it for so long, kind of forget that it's something that we never really deserved in the first place and should be respected. We should be respecting the fact that she gives us anything at all.
Absolutely. We're not entitled. We may feel like that we're entitled just because of how much we've invested in Harry Potter in our lives. But like I said earlier, this is J.K. Rowling's world. It's her story, and she can give us whatever she wants to give us whenever she wants to give it to us. Like, she doesn't have to, there's no timetable. Like, she doesn't have to do it now. She doesn't have to do it 10 years from now. She doesn't even have to do it on her deathbed. Let's talk about, let's jump back into the fandom real quick. Our fandom is incredibly opinionated. There's no doubt about it. From all issues surrounding various topics in the series to the latest events which have unfolded within the past few years, there's also no doubt that the different stances on these issues has caused a deep division in the community. Now, is this the new norm? And is our fan family in trouble of being permanently divided?
I feel like this is the new norm, and it makes me sad to say, but I think that just since the book stopped coming out, we have just gotten more opinionated, more divisive. Nothing is good enough. Everything's terrible. Crimes of Grindelwald was the worst. Like, I don't remember having such negative reactions in the fandom for any of the Harry Potter films or the books. Like, there might have been little things people didn't like. Like, I remember I didn't love Deathly Hallows the first time I read it, but I was still like, whoa, what an incredible novel. Like, what an amazing ending. And I just don't think we're seeing that anymore, that kind of positivity and real appreciation. I think it's a lot more like, Joe should stop. She should stop doing this. She should stop doing that. Oh my gosh, we're so sick of it. I think it's reached the point where people are just super negative.
So in terms of if this is the new reality for our fandom, I definitely agree with Gretchen that this is. I think it's not so much like a new reality as it is more of like a solidified reality, a reality that existed, that we just have had time to really delve into now that the series is cemented and a little bit past us, so to speak. If I'm going to find a silver lining to all of this, though, what I will say is, and what I love about this, obviously, I have my own personal beliefs and political opinions, but what I love is that a book, a series, 7 books could touch so many people in such a universal way that could reach, at least by American politics, people from both the far left and the far right, and even everyone dead center. It can touch an entire spectrum of sociopolitical beliefs, which I think is really incredible.
So my final thought with this, and I contacted Eric after I read the article, and I let him know, one, how much I appreciated him for writing it, but two, how much I really, appreciated him bringing the issue of this clickbait BS to light for fans to read. But I just want to say, like, people are using, people have used the message that this series has inspired us to carry throughout the years. And they've used it to kind of feed their own agendas. And this is, unfortunately, I'm going to answer my own question here, but this is the new norm. This is going forward. Our fandom is going to be divided, but at the same time, it's funny because it's united in the message that it brings and inspires. So I don't know. It's really the Harry Potter series has become a double-edged sword, I believe, in some issues. But that's pretty much all I have. Do you guys have any final thoughts?
I will offer this last thought, and that's to say that, kind of to my previous point, we are, lucky to have a universe that unites, as Terrance, you mentioned, but, also brings up some diverse opinions and viewpoints. And I will always welcome the conversation. I will always be a safe space to have the conversation with the difficult nuts and bolts. And so as long as we have that conversation, and even if you come to the table and are very different from me, if you take a peek at my Twitter handle, you can get a glance at my opinions real quick. But if you have a dissenting opinion, which hell, I love RBG, so I love a good dissent. Have the conversation with me. I'd love to have that conversation with you. So as long as we can both come to it with a mutual understanding and appreciation for where people come from and what their viewpoints are, and we can have, an intelligent and, informed discussion, then I say, discuss on, Harry Potter fans. Always discuss on.
Hear, hear.
Hear, ear. Anybody get it? No? Okay. Sorry, just me. All right, well, that does it for this week's episode. We want to thank everybody so much for tuning in. And if you want more bonus content, don't forget to sign up over on Patreon. Become a patron, help us get to our new goal that we have. That way we can record our Chamber of Secrets commentary and have a live AMA. And you, as a patron, get a bunch of goodies. Go ahead and go check it out. Patreon.com/Hogwarts Radio. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and anywhere else you can find the show online. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Once again, I'm Terrance Pinkston.
I'm Gretchen Rush.
And I'm Alex Lohman.
And we'll see you next time for episode 240. Bye-bye.
That was bloody brilliant.
Codswallop.